we have to understand that the mind is a free will, but yet it is a channel between the heart and the higher mind. We start to force certain parts of the belief systems that we have created or have experienced in this life, and we think that we can push them away. You cannot push them away. The only thing you can do is bring them in. Why bring them in? Because the mental body needs to process it. So if you are a field, let's say the toroidal field, everything goes back to the core. So you're the core. You have to kind of feel it. Where this is now, the mental body and the emotional body start to work together. The emotion feels and the mind stays still. Mental body is part of the astral body. The mind grid is something separate. It is the collective thought process that you have adapted from your family, ancestors, cultures, religions, the world. And the mind grid is where the belief systems that drive you, the unconscious and the superconscious, unite in there. I think I'm going to go over a little bit differently of understanding the mental body, the brain, and the mind. And the difference between these two and how they create our reality. So last week I went over a little bit of stuff about the emotional body. So the mental body is pretty simple. It's not that difficult. Uh, Everything that your emotional body responds to is due to the memory of the mind. The mind is a powerful tool. It is a tool that can work with the creator, or it could separate itself and say, I am the creator. When it comes to that space, it becomes ego driven. So, how do we differentiate between the higher mind and the physical mind, which steps in and starts to control and manipulate things based on its own perceptions that it has accumulated in this lifetime? So, in these types of energetics, we have to understand that the mind is a free will, but yet it is a channel between the heart and the higher mind. So if you observe your mind and say, like, look at it as a sponge, it's a sponge that connects to this dimension and accumulates everything, all events, experiences, traumas, desires, joyful experiences, orgasmic experience, whatever they may be, it all just stores it. And then there's a time where does it store it all? It does not store anything in the physical mind. It stores it all in the ether. But what does it do to the brain? It changes the plasticity of the neurons inside the brain. So the neurons inside the brain create a certain wiring, and then they respond and work based on that experience. During that time period, the mind, okay, can also be affected by the planetary shifts because it is frequency and vibration. Around our physical mind, we also have planetary systems that rotate within the field, which also take place in the cosmos. The mind creates the reality based on experiences. So it's all memory. If you have problems with something, you're feeling something, it is because you have a memory of it stored in the field. And it cannot be forced, it cannot be pushed, but it can be gently softened up into that space. And once we gently soften up into that space, only then the ego mind will open up because it cannot be forced. It only can be approached if you approach it as a child from innocence. Because a lot of times what we do, we get into the meditative state and we start to communicate and we start to push and pull, we start to force certain parts of the belief systems that we have created or have experienced in this life, and we think that we can push them away. You cannot push them away. The only thing you can do is bring them in. Why bring them in? Because the mental body needs to process it. So if you are a field, let's say the toroidal field, it everything goes back through the core. So you're the core. You have to kind of feel it. Where this is now, the mental body and the emotional body start to work together. The emotion feels and the mind stays still. The mind does not respond to the emotion of what it's feeling. The mind observes. So if you can get yourself into a space of stillness and observe what emotions are rising up, that's when that belief system, the trauma, the memory will start to transmute itself and become whole. Because what happens is, if you are a toroidal field, this mental perceptions are within the ley lines of the field, and they have to process through the core, the centerpiece of your existence. And when it processes through the centerpiece of your existence, that means you're allowing certain stagnant energy to flow through you. And in reality, it is your mind separating the field into parts. So that's why we say we need to remember who we are. Is what you're doing. You're taking fragments of yourself and you're bringing them back to the wholeness of your electron or wholeness of your toroidal field. Once you start to do that, belief systems will start to transform, transmute. It is not something that you sit and you force. It is something that you sit and you allow. You allow, but without the interaction with it. Soon as you start to interact with it, you're giving it a separate existence within your own self. So when they say find stillness, it is to become the observer of those fields, of those experiences. And we have many of them. And the consciousness itself wants to clear it, because if you don't feed anything into your consciousness, it will naturally start to transform itself. It needs time. Why? Because we have chosen to experience time in this dimension. So we have to understand how time works in correlation with our mental body and our mind grid. Mental body is part of the astral body. The mind grid is something separate. It is the collective thought process that you have adapted from your family, ancestors, cultures, religions, the world. And the mind grid is where the belief systems that drive you, the unconscious and the superconscious, unite in there. So when I'm referring to superconscious, I'm referring to the higher mind. And all of that takes place in the space of the entanglement of energy within your solar plexus. The ego mind is stored in the solar plexus. So on the higher realms, the solar plex plays as a gateway. So it is understanding and seeing the energy in play between the heart and the ego mind. And in the solar plex is where we should allow the higher mind to reside, not the ego mind. So if you have pancreas, digestion problems, all of that has to do with the belief systems that are stored and created a certain neurological pathway within the brain that allow the body to respond certain ways. So this is from the course. Those that took the course are aware of this. Is just a diagram that was channeled to me on which parts need to be transformed or which parts are actually the chakra systems of the mental body. Here, you will see the energy flow of the mental body. These are the chakra systems that are not on the physical body. They are correlated to the physical body, but they are in the ether. And once one understands how these energies flow and how they operate according to the divine will, not your personality that wishes it was open right away and letting it flow, but the divine mind is aware because the divine mind gave birth to time. So, as we observe these energies and we understand how it all flows, it all comes from the higher realms, and the eyes are part of the brain. So, they are the receivers of everything that you are perceiving, everything that you're looking at, everything that you're experiencing. They receive information into a blueprint, and then your blueprint translates it based on the belief systems that you have accumulated in this lifetime. So when they say remember who you are, what you do, it is to remember the emptiness. It is to remember the hollowness of your space, not giving any labels because the mind labels things. So as soon as you label it, now you're giving it a definition and you're placing it somewhere in the field. Now the field starts to respond to certain experiences as you go along in life. It could be parents issues, mother, father, whichever they are, but they are usually the core. They are not to blame because they are the ones that you chose to experience. um, so during the full moon time, it is a gateway to your mind grid. Okay, even so, they say the emotional body is being affected during the full moon and new moon. But if you overcome certain belief systems, the moon will not have an effect on you. The moon will be the supportive system for you. The only reason you're having difficulties, emotional, heightened experiences, mental blocks, is because your belief systems are not in alignment with the gravitational pulls that the planets are shifting through. So what they're doing, they are bringing everything up to the surface. But the personality, the person is having hard times during this time period. And they say, oh, this is happening to me because the moon is this way, or the planet is this way, or some comet passed by the Earth, and I'm feeling this way because of this comet. Well, in reality, it is not the comet, it is your belief system. It is your emotional state. If you did not have access to the information that is feeding your mind, you would not blame any external forces. You would go inside. So once we start saying, but because this planet moved, this is why I feel that way, you're giving power away instead of going inside and seeing what is the planetary system triggering within your mind grid to accept, to transform, to let go, which is not aligned with the universal mind grid of our cosmic system, because it is also a mind grid. So imagine you see the brain here, and you have spikes, energetic spikes that are constantly coming in and out. They're little chakras, little vortices that receive information and send information constantly. But we also have levels of that. If you take a look at the right side, you see like little grids of ones and zeros. So every time when you operate, it depends on which level you are operating in. And you can say each level is a different dimension. And the grid system, as it goes higher, starts to connect to the solar system. And the solar system's grid system is much more pure than ours because ours is very dense. So when we start to tap into the higher dimensions, that's why we always bring energy from above, is because we're bringing energy from the cosmos to purify the lower state of our mind grid. If you sit and just constantly just bring in the light from your crown down, even beyond the crown, higher than that, constantly bring in light, it will naturally purify your mind grid. Your belief system will naturally change if you constantly bring in a golden frequency. So when we see saints, they have a golden halo. Okay, that's a representation that they have purified their belief system. They're thinking like a saint, they're thinking like an angel. They have transformed the mind to see and to perceive reality from a higher state of consciousness, no longer bounded by their daily experiences, but they become obsessed with the divine mind of how God thinks, how did Jesus think, how did Buddha think, in every circumstance, every situation. So why is it a gold? That is the energy of your solar plex. It's actually gold, right? So it's yellow. It's interchangeable. The sun, also gold, yellow. The rays of the mind are no longer being color. They are becoming one solid color of gold. So when you perceive people, you might see colors sometimes because each color is a ray of its own. So you have energy, which transforms uh, into light, and light transforms into stillness. And once you understand the concepts, we bring in light first because the light transmutes your grid system, transmutes your belief system. And then that light turns into stillness. So this is why we're constantly bringing in light. Because the emotional body then will pick up everything from the mental body and purify itself.